Hello friends and welcome back to Wanderlust Gaming. So today I wanted to address some of the drones, that's why I titled this video You Cannot Reason with Drones. Drones are Nintendo fans, that's how they're usually known for. And I do have a lot of respect for a lot of Nintendo fans because a lot of them are friends of mine. They're really good people, but there's like that's it's but there's like very nasty, toxic Nintendo fan base that is really bad. And one of these guys, he said the Nintendo Switch 2 in my previous video. The Nintendo Switch 2 has already outsold the Steam Deck, and it's only been out for 48 hours. And that is true, but just because the Switch outsold the Steam Deck doesn't mean the Switch 2 is a better system. It just means that they have a very powerful market Nintendo created for themselves, which is good for them. Good business. But it doesn't mean the Steam Deck is a worse up. It's worse than the Switch 2. I actually think the Switch 2 is worse than the Steam Deck. And and I think the Steam Deck is probably the best system that you can buy for currently at the time, because you can customize your Steam Deck. You can put every single game created so far, on the Steam Deck. You can play like Microsoft games, you can play Sony games, and even Nintendo games, if you know what I mean. You can't do that with the Switch 2, and I think the Switch 2 is very overpriced. I think the price is $500 plus taxes. You're in like accessories and games. You might be looking to close to $1,000 for the Switch 2 experience, which is very poor in my opinion. The Switch 2 has a very bad launch in my opinion in terms of games, because a lot of these games you can play already on many systems. So what is the incentive to buy a Nintendo Switch 2, Mario Kart World has been very disappointing from what I'm hearing. People are very disappointed with Mario Kart World. So that leaves you with nothing, And yeah, the Switch 2's outsold the Steam Deck, and in less than 48 hours, but what? You can say like you can say that about many things. It doesn't make the Switch 2 a much better system than the Steam Deck. It just shows that consumers are very dumb, and they really do make bad decisions because most of the people just go for the hype of the Switch 2 and like the promise of Zelda games, and we know, I've been a Nintendo follower for like a long time. They usually release those games like 3, 4, 5 years into the system's life, cycle. So you're gonna be waiting a long time for a really good AAA plus, game, if it ever comes out. A really good example of that would be Metroid Prime 4. That game was announced, I think, in 2017, something like that. So it's crazy. It's been nearly like 10 years since the last time we heard from Metroid Prime 4, and they released the trailer and whatever. And it looks pretty bad, honestly. The graphics look like, just above GameCube levels, So yeah, there's like a very small faction. I don't know how big the faction is of these very toxic Nintendo fans. The drones. Because they just follow orders. That's what they're they're called like that. So yeah, I have a comment here. That said a product selling more units doesn't mean it's better. It just means it's more appealing to the hype mind, which is true. So if sales numbers equals quality, then Pokemon must be the highest quality game of all time, which is true, and everybody knows like Pokemon is good, but it's not that good. So yeah, I just wanted to, just bring some reality and clarity to this toxic fan base, the drones, these people are like blind, like Nintendo can take a dump, put it in a box, put the Nintendo seal of quality on it, and people will just buy it. because these people are just crazy, you know. They're I don't know. They should like try different games, you know. They should play other systems. But yeah, that's the video I wanted to make for today, guys. Have a good day. Bye bye.